Bruce, Michael, Susie, and Tom. As Provost and Dean of the college, it is my great, great pleasure to welcome you all back to Bennington and to offer a very special greeting to the class of 2020. You are joining a remarkable cohort of nearly 700 students, all of whom, as we reflected upon yesterday, contribute to building our community and define its purpose every single day. I'd like to introduce one of those students now, Audrey Wertenen, Chair of the Student Educational Policies Committee. Audrey?
Hello, class of 2020. Welcome. Welcome to your first year at Bennington College. You're here, right now. You are here. Let me introduce myself. My name is Audrey. I'm a super senior, and I graduate this December. I'm the head of the Student Educational Policies Committee. I study dance, biology, and chemistry, and I was the main organizer of and led the largest student protest since the 90s that took place last fall. I care a lot about people and their lives, and I'm very excited to meet all of you during my final term here at Bennington College. So please take this welcome genuinely. I really do mean it. Last year, when I spoke to the class of 2019, I had this incredible theme about how our experience here is similar to the way that the brain self-organizes. I love the nervous system, and I love to dance and think about how a brain is an embodied organ that cannot exist in its conscious state unless the body is present. And I could talk about this forever, but last spring I watched my best friends walk through the yard in front of the Red Barn and graduate, and I cried so hard because they are the most amazing people I have ever met in my life, and I am so proud of them and who they are and what this place allows for. And because this is my last term here, I just want to be really real with all of you. As an almost graduate, I am in the opposite place of where you all sit today, so bear with me. I hope we can find common ground as I attempt to reflect on my time at Bennington College. Welcome to the beginning of something unknown. Welcome to the intense space where everyone around you is a brilliant thinking body, an embodied brain that is unique and stunning and creative, and get ready to find that out about yourself. Get ready to find out that you are brilliant and stunning and creative. By shaping your education, by exploring different ways of looking at the world, and by connecting to the 1,034 people who currently make Bennington College what it is, you are going to become who you want to be. You are you, and no one else defines you. No one knows what route you will take to get there, so trust yourself. Welcome to 4 years of choosing experiences based on interests and passionate gut feelings that take a hold of you in the most exciting and terrifying ways. We make decisions here. We make every size of decision, and we act on them or we don't. An inhibitory decision is still a decision. Inhibition in the brain is still an electrical impulse. Saying no is not doing nothing. So when you are drowning in responsibility after agreeing to all of the opportunities around you, remember that saying no is still energy expended. Inhibition can be your friend. Take care of yourself. Welcome to the beginning of an exponentially growing understanding of the world around you. Remember that your understanding will never be complete. As humans, we cannot sense the speed of the earth and those far away from us. Let the sun hitting your skin and the darkness emerging from behind our green hills remind you that the Bennington bubble is not infinite. Know that there is an intense separation between what we do here at Bennington College and the town of Bennington. In this place, you have an opportunity to integrate and empower those around you, including those you don't yet know. Welcome to the reality that you exist in privilege. You are about to shape your educational trajectory in whatever way you choose, and your choice will be accepted. You are accepted here no matter who you are or where you come from. Acknowledge the privilege you have acquired because of your skin color, your gender, the partners you choose, the family you come from, the way you sound when you speak, the way in which you identify. Acknowledge the immense privilege of going to a liberal arts college where you can make and create work that your imagination dares to bring you to. You can walk up to any faculty or staff or student in this room with an idea and they will listen to you. That is a profound approach to education. Welcome to the reality that educational institutions are not yet equitable. Though we are all privileged to be here, this place is not equitable. Not every student or staff member has the same opportunities and resources available to them. This does not mean that the institution itself does not have the capacity to become more equitable. This is where all of you come in. You are going to be the next generation shaping Bennington College, influencing the process of inclusion and equality in educational institutions. This is really important. Right now, you are surrounded by intelligence, imagination, and support. Every single person in this room is important. Every brain in this room is complex and will create things that will change the way you perceive or approach something. You are going to learn equally as much from your friends and acquaintances as you are from your favorite faculty. These people are going to watch you grow and grow with you, and by the time you're walking in that yard in front of the red barn, you will know parts of each other's truest selves at that moment in time, and that is an incredible thing. I'm going to end with something I wrote a year ago that I still carry with me. My peers have shaped Bennington as autonomous beings with depth and potential, even if we have yet to realize ourselves fully. The world right now is scary. The systems our social societies have in place are struggling to support a rapidly growing population. But as a student of Bennington College, you will learn how to change what you have in order to be what you need, and that is the best practice we could ever ask for to change the world around us. This speech was inspired by the incredible human beings that have most recently defined Bennington College and constructed the most important part of my world. Enjoy this place as much as you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey. In joining the Bennington College community, you are also joining the broader Bennington community. Megan Demarest, Assistant to the Vice President of Finance and Administration, is one of the many faculty and staff who call Southern Vermont home. Megan?
Hi, guys. So about 2 years ago, my husband, my son, and I moved from one of the largest urban centers in the world to here, in Vermont. Brooklyn, New York was our home for 11 years. Talk about a culture shock. Taxis became cows, skyscrapers became barns, and you could occasionally catch the whiff of manure in the wind. Actually, that kind of made me feel like I was still in New York. It was comforting. It was a welcome change, but it was also scary. What am I doing here? I'm not rural. I don't have a green thumb. I am not at all a winter sports enthusiast. And I like to move lightning fast, speed which doesn't really fly when you're stuck behind a tractor on Route 7. I didn't have much time to dwell on any of that, because within 12 hours of moving here, I had my interview for a job in the business office. I jumped headfirst into my new life. I was excited about the possibilities, but I was worried about the outcomes, and I didn't know if I could make this place feel like home. Home has always been an elusive concept for me, because I've moved around a lot throughout my life, and I didn't have what most would consider a traditional upbringing. What I found here at Bennington is a community of support invested in making me feel at home. And it's helped ease me into this next chapter. I've been heartily welcomed by staff members who normally would not have any reason to interact with me. And I've been offered a much-needed hand when I didn't have the courage to ask for help. My colleagues in the business office, especially. Earlier this year, I had a traumatic health scare, and during all that, my grandmother, who had raised me from age 4 to age 11, passed away. It's been a tough year. And the support and understanding of my fellow staff members has been instrumental in helping keep me grounded. I've gotten support even when I'm off campus, expressing my creative self in local community theater productions. Several of my colleagues recently traveled long distances to watch me perform. Thank you. It's no small thing, and it's made me feel like I'm part of this community. We spend 40 hours a week or more here on this campus with each other and with you. Every interaction matters. I've had the privilege of working at 4 different educational institutions over the past 14 years. And one thing I've noticed across the landscape of higher education, no matter the size of the school, is that the staff with whom I've worked all have major skill sets that could easily be applied to any other type of business. But they've chosen higher education. Your new educational support network is comprised of musicians, actors, yoga instructors, carpenters, snowboarders, activists, beekeepers, parents and grandparents. We all have rich lives outside of this institution, and we bring that experience with us every day we come to campus. I believe we have chosen higher education because we see it as a noble cause. We're here to make sure you have everything you need to realize your life's work. I have a BFA in performance, and yet I'm not making a living as an actress or a singer. At times, that's made me feel like I've failed. What I didn't acknowledge until fairly recently is that changing the path I had initially been so intent on traveling has taught me many valuable things, and they aren't all necessarily negative. Now that I'm here at Bennington and excited by the educational model it upholds, I've switched to focusing on what my life's work might be. I've come to realize after 14 years that higher education is part of my life's work. You are part of our life's work, and that is nothing remotely akin to failure. I suspect you will all have similar discoveries. You may find that the fieldwork term job you were really excited about just isn't the right fit for you, or that your initial plan has steered off course in a direction you did not anticipate. Changing course is often part of one's personal evolution. You might regroup and reimagine your life's work many times, and not just here at Bennington, but throughout the remainder of your days. And that's okay. It really is. When I leave my 3.5-year-old son each weekday to come here, it's with some bittersweetness. I think working parents can understand what I mean. It can be heartbreaking. I'm absent in his life 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, so that I can be present here and hopefully make even a small difference in your lives. And it's not about income, although I very much need one. It's not about keeping busy, although I very much want to. It's about being in the service of education. I would not be on this path, in this place, and I certainly wouldn't leave my son every day if I didn't think that helping you all get an education had purpose and meaning. And I'm not unique here in that sentiment. Ironically, you may never have a need to come visit me in the business office during your time here, but I want you to know that regardless, I'm rooting for you every day. We all are. Welcome to Bennington.
As president of Bennington College, it is my pleasure and my privilege to welcome faculty, staff, returning students, and members of the class of 2020 to the unofficial end of orientation and the official start of the academic year. You have all come to Bennington with an extraordinary range of interests and curiosities, and you all come ready to throw yourselves into the work you will do for the next 4 years, or the next term, alongside your peers and all of us here at Bennington who will support and collaborate with you along the way. Of course, there are faculty, an extraordinary group of thinkers, makers, and practitioners who define fields and break boundaries every day. I'd like to introduce you to one of the many members of the faculty whom you will get to know over the course of your time here, Hugh Krull, also known as father of Finn, and Lenny. At Bennington, we ask the big questions. And in some ways, no one asks bigger questions than Hugh. Because Hugh's questions go to the root, or the edges, of our existence. He's an observational astronomer who studies how, this part I'm going to read, make sure I get it right, who studies how the matter of the universe comes together. In other words, How do galaxies change over time? How does their proximity to other galaxies or distance from them determine how they might evolve and develop? How and how often do they generate new stars, and so on, and so on. His work has been published in major journals, including the Astronomical Journal, the Astrophysical Journal, and has been supported by grants from NASA and the Space Telescopic and Science Institute. This is big, consequential work, and he does it at Bennington, a school that is very consequential but not so big. Hugh jokes that he is 100% of the astronomy department and 2/3 of the physics department here. I'll let you sort that out. But he wears that responsibility well, and with his colleagues in Dickinson, trains students who go on to attend some of the top graduate programs in astronomy in the country, and to put their rigorous science educations to work in other ways as well. If you walk into his office, which I recommend you all do, but not all at once, if you walk into his office, his blackboard is covered with plans for the courses he will teach for the next 4-year cycle. Some of these are courses that will ensure that students working in astronomy and physics will get the crucial and foundational information and skills they need in order to pursue their own lines of inquiry. Others are those devised, often with the input of students, to engage with this group of students, particular interests and needs. Hugh has built networks of collaborators all over the country with whom he shares research and access to facilities where he can gather data required to do his own important research, and who also provide Bennington students with opportunities during summers and fieldwork term to further their explorations of astronomy and physics with other top scholars in the field. Before Hugh came to Bennington, he taught a course called Bringing Astronomy Down to Earth. Pun aside, this is very much what Hugh does all the time. His approach to astronomy and to communicating scientific ideas is rooted in his belief that understanding the universe is a fundamental part of understanding our world, and that understanding our world is what a liberal arts education should be about. Last winter, when a consortium of scientists working across the globe announced that they had confirmed the existence of gravitational waves, Hugh taught a pop-up course on the subject. He also tried to explain it in my kitchen, which was slightly less successful than the pop-up course, only because we didn't have all the appropriate accoutrement. But he did a really good job. So he taught a pop-up course prompted by this. Pop-up course is a course taught in response to an urgent need or sudden event. And this discovery gave Hugh and about a dozen students an opportunity to investigate what it really meant. Only 3 of those students, by the way, had science-focused plans. The rest were social scientists, literature students, and I think there might have been a dancer in there, an artist or 2. That's no accident. On the contrary, it's very much part of his design, and you too might find yourself in one of those classes, even if you think you're not a science person. I'm not looking at anybody in particular. But be warned, Hugh tells me that, quote, astronomy is a great way to trick students into studying physics. So look out. Enter at your own risk. Hugh's work, his approach to learning and teaching, his research, his investment in the success of his students pursuing their own inquiries is very much what Bennington College is about. He is one of the many reasons that Bennington is so big, even though we're small. That Bennington and its graduates have such an important presence in the world, fully out of scale to the number of people who could possibly fit in this room. And in the case of Hugh's students, they have an important presence out of this world too. It is my pleasure to introduce him to you today.
So, I get to be the last one to say this. Welcome back, faculty, staff, returning students, and welcome to students of the class of 2020. We've heard over and over in speeches like this that you should work hard and be dedicated, and you should. But at the end of this is success. Encouraging you to succeed is one of the things I'm supposed to do as a teacher and a mentor. Today, I'd like to encourage you to do a much, much harder thing. I want to encourage you to fail. You need more? Okay. I think the value of success is pretty obvious. I think the value of failure is often overlooked. All of us, students, staff, faculty, tell us that the reason we're here at Bennington is that we've been successful in what we set out to do. Students, you worked hard in high school, you wrote a convincing essay about why you should be here, and you were successful, you're here. Now that you're here, I want you to have the courage to fail. A few weeks ago, I saw an inspirational video that has made the rounds on social media about the power of overcoming failure. It's a few years old, you've probably seen it. It's J.K. Rowling, and she's talking about failing at everything she ever did, and that failure pushing her to do the one thing she was truly great at. It pushed her to write. She suggests that without failure, and these are her words, stripping away the inessential, she would have never written Harry Potter. It's an inspiring story, and I think on some level, though, it sells short the power of failure. It posits that failure is something to overcome, that failure is something that pushes you away from the things you're supposed to be doing towards the one true thing that you are supposed to be doing. That by trying something and failing, you learn that your true skills and passions lie elsewhere. I don't think Rowling is entirely wrong. It's one way to deal with failure, to take it as a check against what you're supposed to be doing. But I don't think it's the most interesting way to think about it. Failing at something does not necessarily tell you you're no good at it. It doesn't even have to tell you you were doing anything wrong. Albert Michelson and Edward Morley were physicists in the late 19th century at Case Western Reserve in Ohio. They conducted this experiment that was one of the most well-known and perhaps successful failures in the history of physics. One of the things we understand about how waves move, and have understood for a long time before Michelson and Morley, is that waves move through a medium. So sound waves, the sound waves that are coming to you right now, are moving through air. Water waves move through water. Excellent. So by the late 19th century, scientists realized that light showed some very wave-like properties, so the light that's coming to you right now. And they thought a reasonable experiment was to try to figure out the medium through which light traveled. Scientists called this medium, which I just have to point out they had yet to discover but had still named, they called this medium ether. Michelson and Morley set out to characterize the ether with a particularly clever and simple experiment. That's the best experiments in science, those that are simple. Without getting into the details, I'll just tell you that the detection failed. They were unable to detect the ether, much less measure anything about it. We now know that their failure was one of the gateways to modern physics. We now understand that light is fundamentally different from other waves. Light is both a particle and a wave and doesn't need a medium through which to travel. It's really weird. There's no ether, though, and they failed at detecting it because it wasn't there. In my own field of astronomy, there's a much more recent example of this type of failure. One of the big projects of the last part of the 20th century was an experiment undertaken to measure the expansion rate of the universe. We've known since the 1920s that the universe was expanding, but as we developed better telescopes and better cameras, not me, I wasn't around in the 1920s, we started to measure with high precision exactly how fast it was expanding. At the time the experiment was undertaken in the 1990s, before all of you were born, it was well understood that all the matter in the universe, so the sun, the moon, Earth, you, me, the podium, this thing, which terrifies me slightly, that this was going to slow the expansion of the universe. So it's like you throw a ball up in the air, and at some point the ball reaches the top of how far it goes, and then it comes back down to Earth. And so the question is, so this stuff was going to slow the expansion of the universe and perhaps cause everything to reverse direction and crunch together. So the questions they were trying to answer is, was there enough stuff to stop the expansion? And when was this going to happen? So at the end of 1997, the head of one of the teams studying the expansion, an astronomer named Adam Rees, was looking at his data. The data his team had gathered were measurements taken of a large number of dying stars called supernovae that had exploded a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. There's actually several galaxies, but it messes up the line. Anyway, so the problem that Rees saw was that these explosions were closer than they should have been. There was no way that the current theory of the universe could explain them. In the end, the only thing that convinced Rees that he should publish his results were hearing a rumor that one of his competing teams had identical results they were planning on publishing. The two teams published their results at the same time in 1998. What they discovered was the universe was not slowing down in its expansion, but rather speeding up, accelerating. It's as if you tossed the ball up in the air, and instead of stopping and coming back to Earth, it sped up as it went higher up. So all the stuff in the universe had slowed the expansion for a time, but something was causing it to speed up. The two teams discovered something that we today call dark energy, and we still really do not understand. So Michelson and Morley failed to detect the ether because it wasn't there. Astronomers failed to detect the universe slowing down because they discovered something new, dark energy. I think this is a form of failure that at some level we're all comfortable with, and many of us are familiar with. Heading down a path we think is going to lead in one direction, and then finding something we didn't expect at the end. These stories are nominally about failure, but more about how challenging it can be to recognize success at times. So what about people who truly got it wrong? Two great scientists of the 20th century repeatedly failed at what they were trying to do. One of them, the prominent astronomer Fritz Zwicky, that's a great name. He's prominent among astronomers, but probably not well known to most of you. The second is a former Swiss patent clerk. He's well enough known that I can just call him a former Swiss patent clerk, and many of you know to whom I'm referring. So Fritz Zwicky, was a wonderful example who brilliantly and tremendously failed. He was an incredibly gifted observational astronomer. However, his interpretations of his observations were often well outside the mainstream, let's just say. He saw things in his images that most of his contemporaries didn't. And he was not shy about telling his colleagues what he thought of them. There's this great amalgam of Zwicky quotes on Wikipedia, so just read them. Zwicky described his colleagues as scatterbrains, sycophants and plain thieves who, quote, have no love for any of the lone wolves who are not fawners and apple polishers, and who quote, doctor their observational data to hide their shortcomings, and to make the majority of the astronomers accept and believe in some of their most prejudicial and erroneous presentations and interpretations of fact, and who, therefore, publish useless trash in the bulging astronomical journals. He must have been a real treat. He also was fond of describing some of his colleagues as spherical bastards, which he defined as a bastard no matter which way you look at them. Don't do it now, but after, do Google Fritz Zwicky, and there's a great picture of him sort of scowling at the spherical bastard. So why wasn't he just ignored? Well, because he was occasionally right, sometimes spectacularly so. He was known as one of the initial discoverers of dark matter, which makes up 85% of the mass of the universe. And he was such a gifted observer that even when he was wrong, he made everyone's arguments sharper by forcing them to disprove his theories. So how about that Swiss patent clerk? Albert Einstein is the genius prototype. He developed relativity, one of the cornerstones of modern physics. But for the last 30 years of his life, he grappled with another cornerstone, quantum mechanics, never quite fully accepting it. He found quantum mechanics so deeply weird that he just couldn't accept it. He found the probabilistic nature of quantum mechanics anathema to what physics was supposed to be. Where Newtonian physics and Einstein's relativity talked about the motion of things, quantum mechanics suggested that our handle on those things was less firm than believed. In one way, Einstein was right. Quantum mechanics is deeply weird. However, his attempts to disprove the theory failed because he was just wrong about the theory being wrong. But much like Zwicky, his failure to recognize quantum mechanics with relativity kept pushing the field forward and brought out the best in the scientists with whom he debated. Sometimes, though, we fail because we don't yet have enough experience to recognize success. I had a student a few years back, a wonderful student who was adventurous, creative, and hardworking. As a final project in one of my classes, he decided he wanted to measure the speed of light. He set up an experiment where he bounced a laser between Dickinson and Jennings. Even with a relatively large distance between the two buildings, it still takes a pulse of light only 3 microseconds to complete a round trip. Despite the incredible technical challenges in measuring that minuscule passage of time, the student measured the speed of light within a factor of about 50%. This is incredibly impressive, just to be clear. He viewed this as a failure. Why? He only thought a more precise measurement would be good enough for what he wanted. He didn't have the experience to realize that he had coaxed something incredible out of the measuring equipment. He thought he had failed, when in reality, he had succeeded beyond what was expected. Sometimes we have to be okay with failing because we don't yet know what success looks like. Okay, so time to conclude. I've cheated a little in the stories I've told you. Even though I've cast them all as failure, they were in the end successes in some way or another. The search for ether and the discovery of distant supernovae opened a new world for us and taught us fundamental things about how the universe is put together. Fritz Zwicky and Albert Einstein seriously advanced the dialogue and pushed others to do great work. My student had successes masquerading as failures because he didn't yet know what to look for. Also be willing to accept a more pure, more mundane failure. These failures are rarely discussed because we don't think they're interesting. I don't have any cute stories of the type of failure that is so commonplace in the work that we all do. It is not just unsuccessful people who fail. It is not just people who don't know what they're doing, who don't know how to create a sculpture, or write a play or short story, or set up an experiment, or any of the hundreds of creative endeavors that take place on this campus every day that all of us are here. It is not because we are bad at our job that we fail. It is because, at the beginning of any ambitious work, it is nearly always impossible to tell the difference between work that will succeed and work that will fail. This happens to everyone on this campus. But one of the things that improves with experience is having some ability to spot failure from a distance, to know which paths are less likely to lead to success. In some way, one of the reasons that faculty seem smarter than the students is that they failed over and over and over again in ways that the students can't even imagine yet. An important thing, I don't want you to confuse my message of fail with don't try. You might think that if you're going to fail, why bother trying, right? The mandate I'm setting you forward with, to fail, is not an excuse to be lazy. It is not an excuse to not do your damnedest to forestall failure. Indeed, while you can't necessarily tell in the beginning of a work whether it will be a success or a failure, the one sure way to turn one of your successes into a failure is through lack of work, by not trying. However, we can't let our fear of failure or memories of past failure keep us from doing the important work that we all will do. Don't do boring, safe work because you're afraid of failure. Finally, I just want to say that Bennington is one hell of a safety net. For those times when you do fail, when you work as hard as you can and you don't get there because you don't have the skills yet, or you took a wrong turn somewhere, or because it was just a bad idea, we're here for you. The faculty, staff, students, especially the students. Make sure that whenever one of us fails, the rest of us say, wonderful. Fantastic failure. We can't wait to see what you try next. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugh. I'll close in reminding us of the promise that this new academic year holds for all of us at this place that is Bennington, this idea that is Bennington, and this community that is Bennington, to allow us all, students, faculty, and staff, to explore and to make to imagine and to reimagine, to try and to fail. Lunch will now be served on Commons lawn. Bruce, will you lead us out? Thank you.